So now we'll go into the seasons and different weather that's associated with the seasons. So Hataku Zite is spring, and it more or less means out of it has come to be. And this is the what we call the literal translation. And the free translation is spring. Amma, it's Old Tsuut'ina. I'm not going to tell you what I think it means. I might be mistaken, but it does mean summer. Hazine, again, it's the Old Tsuut'ina. So again, I don't know the meaning, but it means fall or autumn. And then Saska is winter, and it means upon the snow. And why I'd start with spring, it's the rebirth of everything. And in the springtime, there's different names for the weather. So right now, this is May 3rd, 2019. And the weather is cold and chance of snow or rain. So in the Tsuut'ina, in our language, we call that Na Tlitine Jute. So again, we call this Na Tlitine Jute. So it means each other, they are forcing themselves. So in free translation, forcing each other to stay or go. So this is a time like sometimes during the day, say maybe starts at 11 or maybe even earlier, but it's unpredictable which time of the day that it's going to be warm, because on this day, May 3rd, it should be warm, which the crocuses should have already come out, and the weather should be settled. But no, it's cold and there's a chance of rain or snow. It's cloudy outside. So we call that Natlitine Jude. What it means is it's going like this. The winter wants to stay, and spring wants to come along and force winter out. That's a translation of it. So what it is they're trying to, one of them is trying to force the other one to go or to stay. And so about this time, like we talk about the crocuses. So niskakutza, okay, it means earth ears. And so it's ears of the earth. So what happens is the crocus comes out and it makes the flower. So when it makes the flower, it looks around. It looks around and it looks to see how the weather is. And for sure you know that the frost has left the ground because the crocus has come out. So it looks around and so it tells all the plants, the trees, the grass, the flowers, everything. It tells all of its relatives it's okay to come out. So then the medicines and everything, all the grass, all the trees, everything starts to grow because the crocus told them it's all right to come out. So the medicinal property of the crocuses, when it hibernates or whatever you call it, when the growth season is over, it turns purple, and you can use the bud for a toothache. It's like that Jiffy compound that you put on your gums to ease the pain. Well, crocus does that. So crocus is the ears of the earth, and that's the name. That's what we call them. And then so the it's associated with that time, and the geese and the ducks have already come home and they're in the ponds now. They're going to start laying their eggs. So in the springtime, the Thunderbird comes home. So the Thunderbird comes home from the northwest. So you know that he's coming home because there's the lightning and the thunder is very sparse. Maybe one lightning and one thunderclap, and it's quiet. There's no noise, and so it's quiet because he's just coming home, and the female starts laying the eggs, and then as the so it's quiet. It's quiet. And then the summer, early summer. In early summer, there's a wind that goes right close to the ground. We call it Tsuut'ina. Okay, this wind is so close to the ground that the gophers start coming out. And then we call it that because the wind is low, and it hits the, it's so low, they say it hits the ears of the gophers. So that's early summer. And at the same time, the Thunderbird, going back to the Thunderbird, it starts to, the eggs are starting to hatch. So you get a little bit more action in the lightning and the thunder. It's a little more aggressive. So it starts to chirp. So now the lightning and the thunder is a little more. It starts to make more noise. So in late summer, the Thunderbird starts to flap its wings. It's hatched and begins to chirp louder. So you have the Thunderbird, it's starting to flap its wings, and it's getting louder, the chirp, than when the early summer. So now the thunder gets more aggressive. The lightning, there's more lightning, and the thunder is louder because it's flapping its wings. And it's opening its mouth more, so there's more lightning because it always wants to be fed. And then, so that's late summer. The weather starts getting more aggressive. And then in the fall time, in late September or early October, right in the southeast, or to the south, the clouds, there's just flash lightning. We call that lightning, Tsuut'ina. And so so the Thunderbirds are fully grown, and they start making their way back south. So when the Thunderbird comes home and the Thunderbird goes home, when the Thunderbird goes home, you have a feast both times. This one is for the thunderpipes. The thunder medicine pipe owners or keepers, they start making plans to open their bundles, and then when they go home, they have another ceremony to close close their bundles for the season. And through the winter, they smudge it and they keep praying with it. It's okay to open it during the winter if somebody comes for help. So anyway, so the Thunderbird goes home, and then the other story, my grandmother's story, I can only go by my grandmother's stories. She told me at one time, my dad was a chief. And my dad died at the Calgary General Hospital that was imploded about 30 years ago in Calgary, and I was asked to say the closing prayer for all the Indigenous people that passed away in that facility. So I said the prayer, and then they imploded the whole structure just in seconds. But going back to my grandmother, my dad was gravely ill, and the police came up. We were working in the fields. The police came and said, the hospital wants the family at the hospital. So we all went, we got dressed and we all went, and we're waiting. And then over the intercom it said code 9, code 99 in 5 North. That was my dad's floor. And we all rushed there, and I saw him take his last breath. So that at that time you weren't allowed to be in the operating room. So my granny took me to the family room, and we're sitting there. And then the window was open. It was very hot, July 29th, 1966. And then the wind came in the window. It came in, and then it passes again. It went out, and there was a cloud from the north, a small cloud, just thunder and lightning, just really bad. And my grandmother, all she said was, "Ah," she said. So I didn't bother. I was in shock, so I didn't bother asking her. So later, when we all settled down, my granny told a story. She said the old people used to say, when a real chief dies, the Thunderbirds come for the soul. So, but the Thunderbirds came for my dad. And I'll never forget that day, because it was a shock, and also the story that went along with it. My granny always had a story that went along with an event. And then some of the weather on the summertime or springtime is Cha'atin. It means it is raining. Okay, so this is formal Tsuut'ina. So the informal, or Cha'ati. So what happens in Tsuut'ina is there's a sound assimilation that happens in all languages. It became an O, a single O, and then they dropped the N. And so when I'm writing formal Tsuut'ina, which I write, I put a N, and I put brackets around it to show that in old Tsuut'ina the N was voiced. But in modern Tsuut'ina, in fast speech, the nasal, for some reason, disappears. So, Cha'te from Cha'atin. And then, Chanatizu, that's when the rain is very, how do you say it, drizzle. That's it, the drizzle. It just comes down in tiny drops. And then you have Cha Nandiyakoi, pouring rain. So you have Cha'te, or formal Tsuut'ina, Cha'atin, Chanatizu, it's a drizzle. Cha Nandiyakoi, pouring rain. And then there's different words for the heat. Achatiklesh, it means it's very hot. Takosk is, it's like you're aware that it's hot, but it's not, you know it's there, you know it's coming, but like early in the morning, say about 6 or 7 in the morning, they'll say, Dakotata, Dakotata, how is it outside? Your takosk is, it means there's apparently, the heat is apparent, is your response to that question. And then when it's hot, you see the heat waves. Gulush. So gulush means it's wavy, or it's like this. And so that's what you call the heat waves, gulush. And what else? There's a lot, but I'm just showing you a few of them. Nistse, it is windy, but you can use that for any season. So that one is can be for any season. Okay, the general question. Okay. Okay, just like the nitata, okay, dakotata, okay, the literal translation, how their state of being, and this last da here is your question marker, just like the nitata. But this, instead of ne, the nitata, okay, all the components are there for the nitata. If you put if you just put ne here, that means how are you, okay? But the kotata, go is what you call aerial, and it means the area outside. How is the state of being of the outside? Is what it means, the kotata. So. If you just insert again, if you just insert ne, the nitata, it means how are you? So now we're in the fall time. Jazita nita. Okay, so this is the time we call the elk. Elk sleeps in the water. So the elk, that's the only time of the year you'd see an elk lie down in the water. What he's doing is he's getting ready for the rut, and he's marking his area so that the other bulls don't go to that spring where he's rutting. So he prepares himself for the rut. And also the leaves fall. Ase nichetine tlade. Ase means leaves fall. Nichetine tlade. How would you say? Nichetine shedding themselves. So this is the word also for September and October. So that's a time, that the leaves start to change. And then the cranberries ripen. Missiniloe dinit us. So why I make note of that is the in the fall time when they pick berries, cranberries, they don't say I'm going to go and pick cranberries, because right there the cranberries make it snow or make it hail. Missiniloe, that's what it means. It hails with it. The weather changes, so they just get their pails ready, and the old ladies know, or the women, or even the men know that the cranberries are ripe, and so they go out and they pick the berries. But if they say, I'm going to go pick cranberries, right then it starts to snow. And then the winter time, we call it the snow on the snow, or because it starts to snow. And that's when you can tell all the stories you want, because all the medicines and all the animals and all the trees are sleeping. So you can start telling your stories, because when you tell your stories in the summertime, the belief is that the animals forget to get fat, the trees forget to grow, and the grass forget to grow, because they have to stop and listen to the stories that are being told. So you can tell stories if the weather is bad anyway. You can tell stories in the summertime, because usually you're housebound and you cannot go outside anyway. So you can tell stories at that time. So it was always respect of the elements and the seasons that kept us going. And the next. So that's the seasons, and I'm just telling you a little bit about each, in order for you to kind of get an idea of what time of the year I'm talking about, and the weather that's associated with summer. In the fall time too, you have the same thing, that happens in October, and in October, the weather again snows, and the snow goes away, so it repeats the same as the springtime. And then the edge of the water starts to freeze. Tutaka Gutishe, that's November. And my granny, when she was trying to get her pension check, there was no record of her anywhere. So they asked her, because she was already in her 70s, and at that time you can only get pension when you're 70. Anyway, there was no record. So she went to the to sign a declaration, and they said, "Okay, when were you born?" Well, she told them, "My grandmother said when we moved here from the Blackfoot." "And what month?" And she said, "Tutaka Gutishe, that's November." So whoever was taking her affidavit put November 15th. So we all celebrated her birthday on November 15th, but we don't know if that was her right birthday. So anyway, the seasons, we mark each one by nature, what it does, what is happening at that time.